So today on Behind the Mix, I'm going to be deconstructing a song that I just completed. It is a cover version of a world famous old song, Besame Mucho. Now, with this particular song, I wanted to make it different from a lot of the covers that are out there, but I didn't really want to take away from the vibe of the original. So I did incorporate some live instruments, and the live instruments that I did incorporate in this are live shaker, little congos that I have, 2 tracks of cowbell, live bass, and live guitars. And the rest is just VST instruments, 2 pianos, and a pad. And that's basically it for the tracks on this song. So yeah, the song starts with basically with the piano and guitars and bass, and then eventually the full rhythm kicks in. But I just wanted to go through the basic sound bed that I created. So initially I have just a dark piano, and this is what it sounds like on its own. It's on this track. So as far as EQ wise on that particular track, I basically took off all the high ends and a little bit of the lower mid. I just wanted to make it really dark. That piano is really highly compressed through my Drawmer tube station, and I have the tube section on as well, so it gives it a little bit more dirt and girth as well. So I have that piano, and then I also layered it with this other piano that is not being compressed at all, and I made it more mid-rangey, and that is on this track, on the last track. And this is what it sounds like together. And as far as effects, I put a large effects from the Roland R880 reverb unit. That is just a dark piano, and that's both of them. Now the next sound that I just wanted to create a little bit more atmosphere, I just put a dark, actually I don't know if it's that dark, but it's just a pad. And again, I just wanted to make it kind of mid-rangey. There's a lot of hall effect on that, and that hall is also from the Roland R880 unit. And as far as compression, it's being compressed through another channel of my Drawmer tube station, and it has the tube engaged. I mean, that's basically what I use that unit for. I usually like it on pianos, organs, pads. I like to squash them and just put that tube for more saturation, and that's what that sounds like. EQ wise, I didn't do, what did I do on this? Yeah, I boosted the high mids around 400k, and that's what let's just hear it with the piano and the pad. So that's what that sounds like. And now let's just go into the guitars. So I have one guitar here, and it's panned hard left, and then I have another one panned hard right. It was just cutting out a little bit, but yeah, it has a hall coming from the Roland R880 and delay from the Korg SDD-3000. And as far as compression, I usually love my electric guitars going through my Golden Age Comp 3A compressors. It's an LA 3A emulation, and right now there's not too much compression on it. because I didn't want to really squash it for this kind of song, but it usually sounds really good with a lot of compression. So that guitar is panned hard left. And then let's check what we have going on this other guitar that comes in a little bit later. And compression on that guitar, once again, it's another channel of the Comp 3A. As far as effect, it's going through the same Roland R880 Hall. And as far as delay, I changed it up a little bit. It's going through the Mooger Fugger. So you can kind of hear the darker tails. It's a nice contrast with the other guitar. And this guitar, I wanted to make it brighter. So EQ-wise, I boosted at 12K and what looks like 8K as well. And I took a little notch down from 400. So I think it just complements that guitar really nice. So let's just hear a little section with both guitars, see what they're doing. And there we go. So that's the basic sound bed. 2 guitars, 2 piano tracks, and a pad. And let's just hear a little section of how that's sounding. And I guess I should bring in the bass. Let's just hear the bass on its own. So the bass I tracked live through my Chandler preamp. And if you want to hear the final mix, make sure you click on the link in the description. That'll give you the final mix of the song that has been mixed and mastered complete. And be sure to check out if you're curious as to all the gear that I use, I'll have all the units in the links in the description as well. So as far as bass, it's a very simple track. I'm not, the craziest bass player. I just wanted to keep it simple. It's going through a Chandler preamp. I never compress going in, but I do compress afterwards, and it's got a little bit of light compression from my Joemeek VC6Q. I boosted a little bit on the low end on that unit, and on the board at like 60. I went real low with this bass. And as far as effects, I just have like a stereo spreader from the Alesis Quadraverb. So yeah, you can hear it. That's with no chorus, like spreader effect. And there it is with more of that effect. And yeah, EQ wise, I didn't do much to it. I boosted a little bit at like 350, but I kind of liked it dark. And so let's just hear the complete sound bed with the bass, 2 guitars, and piano and pad. So let's just hear how that's kind of building. And yeah, so that's how it's building. And let's just hear it with the vocals. Now, in case you're curious, the vocal was recorded through a Manley reference, through a Chandler preamp. It really does sound finished, practically, like recording through this microphone. It's an incredible microphone. So EQ-wise, I don't do too much to the vocal. But let's just hear the lead vocal on its own. And I'll tell you what I have on it. I have, let's just hear a little bit. Besame, besame mucho. So there we go. I wanted a dreamy kind of reverb on this because it kind of goes with the track, with the whole vibe. And there's a separate hall that I have going through the Roland R880. I use that reverb quite extensively because I love the sound. It's got a kind of a vintage vibe, but it also sounds real, and it's not too fake sounding. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, I usually have like one standard hall for my instruments, and then another plate or room or hall in this particular case for the lead vocal. So yeah, it's a large hall. I put a long pre-delay, I think at 188 milliseconds, just so that the reverb kicks in right after the vocal and it doesn't really drown the vocal out. And that's all that's going through that. As far as compression, it's going through my Klark Teknik 1176 and LA2A emulations. So it's going through the 1176 first, just to kind of tame the peaks, and then that just tames it enough so that I go through the LA2A and I do a little bit more compression on there, but nothing too extreme. But I just like it because it's a great chain that I don't really have to do too much volume automation, especially with this Manley mic. It has a little bit of tube compression that kind of compresses it a little bit as well. So that's what's going on the vocals. So let's just hear a little bit of that.
Como si fuera esta noche la última vez.
And this track also has some background vocals, so let's just hear a little bit of the background vocals. So I just did a couple of tracks. So I did, 2 tracks. They're just double the same parts. And then I doubled them again on the computer, pan them hard left and right, and offset the start time by, I think, 40 milliseconds or something short, just so that I get at a really wide stereo pan. And let's just hear a set of those background vocals.
Besame mucho.
And that's it. So those are the background vocals. I usually put like a bigger hall on that, but I found that I wanted them a little bit drier for this song. So it does have a little bit of the same reverb that is on the lead vocal. But I think it just kind of works. So let's just hear the lead with the backgrounds kicking in.
Besame mucho. Como.
And let's just hear it with the full sound bed right now.
Besame mucho. Como si fuera.
Okay, so let's go to the next section of the song. So in the next section, the full rhythm kicks in. So let's just see what we have on. The first track is just a straight kick that I got from Groove Agent in Steinberg's Cubase. And I was quite happy with how that sounded. That's being compressed through a DBX 160 compressor. Very little compression on it. It sounded good. EQ wise, I did nothing on it. It just sounded good. Just how it sounds right there. Now, I have to mention my drums. They are going through 2 separate buses of parallel compression. So as you can see here, I have my left, right. So that's the main bus. And then I have 1, 2, and 3, 4. And that just, it gives the drums more life. So you can hear, let's just see the difference. And I just want to tell you, so one of those buses is a Korg, I'm not sure, you can just check the unit in the description. So it's a Korg compressor, an old Korg compressor, and the other bus, 3-4, is a DBX 168A. You don't see too much of those around, but it sounds good on drums. So you can kind of hear, this is just a kick on its own. the Korg compressor, and the DPX. So you can hear the difference. There's just more life to that. So those buses are going on the kick, shaker, like all the percussion stuff. So let's go to the next track. The next track is just a simple bongo. You know, I have these small bongos, and I recorded them through the Manly. I brought out the higher mid-range a tiny bit, but with this mic it doesn't really need too much as far as EQ is concerned. And as far as reverb, it's going through a PCM60 patch from my Lexicon MPX 550. There's a little bit of that reverb pretty much on all the drums. So there's the conga. I did also a live shaker. And like I said, EQ wise, I did hardly anything to it because it just sounds bright from the Manly microphone. And then I did one track of cowbell that is panned hard left. And once again, you can hear a little bit of that PCM60 reverb sound. And I did another track of cowbells. So let's just bring everything together. So here we have the kick, bongo, shaker, cowbell 1, and cowbell 2. And let's just bring in the other elements. Bass, guitar 1, guitar 2, piano, pad, and everything.
Besame mucho, como si fuera esta noche la última vez. Besame.
And there you go. That is basically the complete mix. And like I said, I'm using an analog board. If you were doing a mix like this inside the box, I used to do a lot of mixes inside the box. I just found that for me personally, I had to do more work to get the sound that I'm after. With analog, the reason I went all analog is because just running the sound through the board, the song starts to sound finished a lot quicker. If I was doing everything inside the box, I'd have to start putting saturation plugins, distortion emulations on most tracks just to try to get a bit of that analog kind of sound and glue. But when you're using a board, it's just so much quicker. And as you can see, EQ wise, I try to get it right at the source, and I didn't have to do too much. Sometimes it's just I use EQ more for effect. But yeah, there's absolutely no plugins on this mix whatsoever. Everything is into the board and into the effects. And the final 2-track mix is actually going through the Warm Audio bus compressor. And I'll give you the settings for that. It's basically, the attack is at 0.1, ratio is at 2, and then I engage the transformers button, and that's basically the entire mix. Now, once I do export this song, I do use a digital limiter just to bring the volume up. So I do export the complete song and then bring it back in, and then I put the Sony inflator plugin. I usually put like 30%, and then I just use my ear so that I can kind of crank it without really distorting. And then followed by that, I put the Sony limiter plugin, and I crank a few more dBs out of that. And between those two plugins, I'm really happy. It sounds, competitively loud without going too much. Like I'm not competing with anybody right now as far as the loudness wars are concerned. I just want it loud enough, but nothing that is too squashed that it just drains the life out of the song. So that's it. That's basically it. If you have any questions, just leave me a comment. If you want more in-depth tutorials, like as far as EQ per channel, I could see what I can do with that. The only issue with that is that, if you're trying to emulate something like a particular EQ that I did on my song, and then you try to emulate it for something that you're doing, it's probably not going to work because it's a different kick. It's a different sound. So that's why I'm not too much of a fan of really explaining every single detail as far as EQ, because you really do have to use your ears for that. What I do on one snare on my mix won't necessarily work for something else. So you have to determine, what do you want, let's say, from a snare. Do you want it fatter? Well, boost 2 to 300K, or maybe mult that channel and boost 2 or 300 on one, bring that in to the original snare so you get, there's so many things you can do. But yeah, you have to basically use your ears, and that's about it. So be sure to subscribe. I'm going to be doing more of these tutorials, and be sure to click the link in the description for the completed song so you can hear how it sounds with the full mastering on it. And that's it. See you soon.